Welcome back to Combust Astrology. My name is Liv, and a train is currently chewing. Anyway, so I'm going to be covering Jupiter entering Cancer, and this will be here for a good portion of the next year. Jupiter moves through a sign 1 year at a time, and before we do get into it, let's actually take a blast from the past. So Jupiter, when it was in Gemini, taught us a lot. Jupiter in Gemini was not necessarily the most fun of transits. I personally didn't feel like it was, but that's what it really affected my chart as. But Jupiter in Gemini was very much a period of time where you had to kind of understand what you're not. Gemini is constantly understanding what it's not. And so that's why I looked at this period of time as that, because unfortunately, having a lack of faith is, in essence, the definition of being a Mercurial. If you have Virgo or Gemini, you're definitely someone that needs to know that you need a security, a sense of understanding. You need to kind of see, because in the space that there is no data or receipts or proof or evidence, it makes you uncomfortable, might make you anxious, because faith is Jupiter, which is Sagittarius or Cancer or Pisces. And so having a lack thereof faith is something that is uncomfortable because, well, how do I know what I don't know? And so that is why Jupiter going into Gemini was not necessarily the funnest things, because it gave an abundance of that. What do I not know? What is there a lack of? And a good way to kind of draw this out for the visual people is that the mutable axis of Virgo, Sag, Pisces, and Gemini is one of a spiritual test, I think, because the next axis that comes after it is the cardinal. And if you look at, if we just start off with, I guess I'll start off with Taurus, right? So fixed, mutable, and I'll just write MUT, and then cardinal, right? And this goes as a cycle all the way through. So when you start at fixed, you start with an idea that comes from a cardinal before. And the major cardinal is Aries, right? You're coming from Aries to the cardinal. You're going into the fixed sign. So there's been a crystallization of what is believed, the ideas, whatever, from that start. And then going from that fixed to the mutable, it's a process that requires change. And that changing is temporary. It's not supposed to be here forever, because you change so that you could start anew with the cardinal, and then you start again with the fixed. And this makes a whole cycle. It's like the snake eating its tail in the esoteric sense. But the reason why the mutable part is so important is because just like the waxing and waning crescent of the new and full moon, you have to take a moment. And in fact, you have to sit back and reanalyze yourself. Currently, this is being recorded on a first quarter moon, ironically, but that mutable sense needs you to just reanalyze itself. So because of this, it is the axis of faith to me, because it's like data versus faith, right? And at different points in a cycle, in transits, in your chart, you will notice that the quarters are important, right? The halfway points to the start of a transit is also important, but the quarters are important because here you can kind of make a little bit of a pivot, right? If you start off with an idea, you're seeing some things you got to change at that first quarter of the moon cycle before the full moon. You can change that. And the mutable axis, as I've said this a million times already, is important. So Jupiter wanting to be in both Sagittarius and or Pisces, and then having its exaltation in Cancer, is important to note, because it's in detriment when it goes into, oh, I'm hues of black. It's definitely in detriment when it tries to go into Virgo or Gemini, because it's too much. It's too much thinking. Jupiter in Gemini is too much thinking, in a way that takes in a lot of time, and you can't really sit back and get the best answer. So Jupiter in Gemini was knowing what you weren't, because you weren't going to get the answer to what you needed. Outside, well, that's not a good way to say it. You weren't going to get the answer to what you needed specifically, but you know now what you don't, right? Um, I want to say that the Jupiter in Cancer change will be amazing, because compared to Gemini, it's not going to be so tiresome. There's not going to be a million things that you have to do personally, because you know now what you let go. Because the Jupiter and Gemini give you the time to start, fail, start, fail, start, fail, start, fail. It was a lot. It was a whole lot. And then to add injury to insult, while Jupiter was transiting Gemini, you had Saturn in Pisces airing out what you didn't need. So Jupiter was sitting here increasing, and then Saturn was sitting here decreasing. And this square, whenever Jupiter and Saturn have a square, that is an H. I look at it as a sort of budgeting. It's definitely like a rebalance. And in Gemini, okay, what are you taking too much in, and what are you being delusional about with Pisces? That was a nice little bit of time for you. You got to really sit back and be like, yeah, this is not it. This is not going to work. And actually fix that, right? So here we are, and we're leaving Saturn. We no longer have the nodes in Aries and Libra, right? To help accentuate needing to be for you. And Jupiter's coming into its exaltation. Why is this so amazing? Well, we get a break. I don't know about you, but since November, since Pluto finally moved into Aquarius, it's been a ride. it's definitely been a ride. And so now the ride is not over, but the ride definitely can give us a little bit of a breather. It's like after you're getting to the top and you're like, you've had one swing and you're just like, okay, like I didn't die. I kind of wanted to at some point, but I didn't. I got past February and March and April and the retrogrades. And now that I'm here, how can I make the best of it? Because this is a turning point in our age. We are at a turning. Some people say the fourth turning, etc. But it's never a smooth transition. But Jupiter in Cancer will help iron out that case. Things might not have been the best the last year, but now there is a chance to get some peace and some love. As Jupiter is moving into Cancer now, we start off with giving prominence to a lot of the water signs. If you have placements that are water in your chart, you will want to keep in mind Jupiter is going to be here to make you feel better, right? If you have a water moon, sun, Mercury rising, Venus, Mars, especially the big six really, it's going to feel a lot better, as Jupiter in Cancer will help heal what you're going through. Just like the Saturn in Aries, I will be making separate videos for each house. Give me some time. I get drained doing these. So give me some time, but it will feel great, and also, obviously, even if you have squares or the trines, or the sextiles, it'll still feel good, because Jupiter in Cancer, like, you can't go wrong with it. It can more so be a little bit hard at first, which is necessary because Saturn will square that Jupiter. And like I said, it's necessary because too much good is not good in the long term. But here, this exaltation is what we really need in life. Because Jupiter is seen as, in my opinion, as like Santa Claus, someone that has Jupiter or Sagittarius placements or Pisces placements, they give quite a bit. And so I look at it as Santa Claus because, having Venus or Mars or Sun or Mercury and Sag, like, you're just someone that's going to want to get up and go. but that comes with money. And so I tend to see like the Sagittarius people are very like adjacent to expensive lifestyles, but they might not be so materialistic, but they're like, if I want to have fun, I need money, before it becomes Capricorn, which is just like needing money to need money. But before I can have that fun, I need the money. So I'm going to do what I can, because I'm also going to be a big spender. But instead of it being that way with the Sag, or in the case of Pisces, where it's like, I want to feel so much love, I want to feel so much pleasure, I want to feel so much transcendence, let me just dissociate. I don't need necessarily the most expensive thing. I could just be whatever, right? These two signs can become gypsies or wanderers or travelers or people that just want to explore and have a good taste for the world. But in Cancer, it now becomes, like I said, what humanity really needs, which is this sense of like agape love. I know that's typically associated with Pisces. However, I do think that Jupiter in Cancer, that agape love is more so home, right? Coming back to home. That's like, that is something that cannot be understated enough, especially in these current times. Coming back to home means that you now feel like you have a sense of love somewhere or with people that you don't care about the materialistic gain anymore. Like you don't feel like you need to go out of your way to have a specific tax bracket or to achieve a specific amount of success. It doesn't mean you won't do that, because Pluto and Neptune and Saturn and Aries, the conquest is still going to be there, but this is a good, strong feminine placement that will help with the overbearing masculine that is about to change. We have had the big, planets in feminine placements, but this is a nice little way to stop us from just catapulting into World War III or something with all that other stuff, but to kind of help make it a little bit more sublime. There are going to be a lot more emotions, but it won't be like when Mars was in Cancer prior in the past of the year. So now you're kind of sitting with this feeling, and it's joyful. And then not only do we get this new Mercury, but we get it a day after, this new Jupiter, but we get it a day after the new Mercury in Cancer. So now our feelings are being on the table. Things make sense. And this is a good time to be looking at things to start, because it's honestly like cute. It's very nice. Pluto's retrograded. You're going to be having the Neptune and Saturn together. But then Venus is in Taurus. And so Venus and the Jupiter and the Mercury are having this nice relationship where it's talking about how you feel. Later on in the month as well, I think the best week of the month is also coming up, which would be around the 20th, 24th, where you have that new moon in Cancer. It's going to be a really nice day and week, really, to just try and do a vacation, trying to be with the people you love. The 25th, probably. It's amazing, especially as Mars is in Virgo, and you're like, how do we make it better overall? How do we increase the quality of life? So overall, Jupiter in Cancer is an amazing transit. It's healing. It's very happy. It's very fun, but most importantly, it's very loving. And that's really what I wanted to kind of start off by saying before I do cover it in each of your signs. Remember that this Jupiter transit sets us up for a really nice couple of Jupiters, in my opinion. After this, I don't think Jupiter in Virgo is as bad as Jupiter in Gemini. I will take Virgo over Gemini any day, because the Gemini was just too much. But Jupiter going through Leo, Virgo, and Libra are going to be some really nice Jupiters to live through. And so with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram, Combust Astrology, or my website, combustastrology.com. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.